Welcome to the Adam Rothstein Hockey Podcast. This is your podcast for all things hockey. On this podcast, we talk about past history to the modern day and what you can do to grow the sport. I am your host, Adam Rothstein. All right, let's get to the show. And welcome back to the Adam Rothstein Hockey Podcast. This is episode number 64. With me today is Mr. Brandon Potter, back at it. How are you?
I'm doing good, Adam. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you for coming back. So, as you know, the Frozen Four is coming along. You have your team set. I do want to get your questions on that, as well as the Bruins just winning their 60th win as well. So it's Sunday here, April 2nd, but this will come out on April 3rd. So the first question is, who do you think is going to win the Frozen Four?
Dude, that's a real tough one. But I think that I want to say Minnesota, because they're number one and they look good all year. But I really think that Michigan is going to win it this year. I just think they've been so hungry for so long, and I just think they look the best. Even though Minnesota did dominate in regionals and they did so well, but I got my money on Minnesota if I'm going to bet on it. If I'm a betting man,
my dark horse is Michigan, and I still have to take Minnesota. Just if you're going to play it safe, you take Minnesota all the time.
Right.
I think Quinnipiac getting in was probably a little bit more surprising to me. And but the last game that I saw was between Penn State and Michigan, and I was like thinking, man, if Penn State gets in, that's going to be great for the NCAA. Probably more because historically, Penn State is not a hockey school. As you remember, we faced Penn State Berks. We didn't face the actual Penn State because there was no ACHA team there, and they were just starting out with their NCAA team at the time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I was actually pulling for them to beat Michigan. Not that I like them more than Michigan, but I just thought it'd be great for their program and great for Division I hockey to see Penn State make it that far. But I gotta say that I wasn't too surprised with Quinnipiac. I did see a statistic recently when I was watching the games a couple weekends ago that they have in the last, I think, 3 seasons, or like since the COVID season, they have the most wins out of any program in Division I college hockey, which is pretty impressive. They just have unfortunate luck when they go into the bracket, the tournament rounds, and the regional playoffs and all the stuff like that. So I think it's going to be a really good game, Michigan and Quinnipiac. That's the one I'm most excited to watch, to be honest, of the 2 games. So I'm really excited to watch some good college hockey next weekend.
And you have Minnesota and Boston University. It's like I know, like respect to Boston, but I do not see them winning that. They're gonna have to wait for a different type of championship, and that would be the Stanley Cup, possibly coming to Boston as well.
Right.
I think the Frozen Four is going to be very good, and I think Tampa once again getting the chance to come along and host the Frozen Four championship is going to be one of the best things you could possibly do for the sport, because it's in a southern city. That wasn't a traditional hockey city until just before we were born, and Tampa really has grown into a hockey town because the Lightning have been to the finals 3 times in a row. That does not happen in the butterfly era at all. And it's just and I think it's just going to be an overall good tournament. But one more thing, back to your point on Michigan, remember?
Yeah, no, I think Michigan, they had just, to me, every game I've seen this year, which hasn't been many for Michigan, but every time I do see them, they're just a team that can fly. They skate hard, they create opportunities, they play very well defensively, and they have a really good goalie, but they have their top line. I think I can't remember the exact numbers, but their top line, which I think are all first round draft picks in the NHL, have combined for like 150 points together this year. Or like maybe it's like maybe a little bit higher than that, but they are considered the number one offensive line in college hockey this year, and they just have been leading the way for them. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens on Thursday when Boston University plays them and see if they can shut down that top line. But I mean, it's going to be a hell of a 2 days for college hockey. So I think there's going to be a lot of viewership across the country and in Canada and North America overall. And I think you're going to see some really, really tight games. I don't think they're going to see any blowouts because all these teams were blowing people out in the regionals and the semi regionals. I don't think we're going to see any blowouts on Thursday or Saturday.
Not at all. Not at all. And April 8th is the championship day, and I
Yep.
think Minnesota and Michigan are going to come along. And if anyone is going to be a dark horse, it's going to be the Wolverines. All right. That takes care of the Frozen Four. So the Boston Bruins just got done, and I just watched it. Linus Ullmark made the final save in the shootout against. I
Yep.
honestly forgot just now, but 60 wins, and the Tampa Bay Lightning, I believe, were tied with the Red Wings, if I'm not mistaken, on on the 62 wins. That's the most
Yep.
amount any NHL team has won in a season. And I guess, like, lose 20, win 60 sort of thing. Like, every team apparently has lost at least 20, or they've not, or they've lost in overtime as well.
Mhm.
So the Bruins have played 77 games total. They've won 60, they've lost 12 in regulation, and they lost 5 in overtime. I think uh they have 5 more games to play. All they need to do is win 3 and they break the record. Do you think they can do it?
I think they definitely can. The way they're playing, even today, they got the 3-1 lead in the third period against the Blues, and the Blues are a team, even though they're most likely not going to make the playoffs, they're a team that still has skill and can hang around, and they came back on them. But the Bruins still seemed hungry to finish the game. They didn't like lay back and let the Blues take over. They didn't let them, you know, sneak away with a come from behind win. The Bruins kept pushing and pushing in the overtime to get that win, and I think that shows a lot of adversity and a lot of character in their dressing room. So I definitely think, I mean, they got win 3 out of 5. They've won, I think, 6 of their last 7. I think they're a team that's just dominate, and they're dominant this year. So I definitely see a 3 out of 5 for them for sure.
Okay, so they face the Toronto Maple Loafs on Thursday,
Mhm.
and that'll run into the 2 college hockey games semifinals. Then New Jersey comes into town. They play Blackwood and the Devils, and as well. And Jack Hughes and all that. The Flyers come in with Mr. Provorov. They go into Philadelphia to face Provorov and the Flyers, and then they play the Caps at home for one last home game, and then they have to go to Montreal to face Les Canadiens. So,
Mhm.
so you have the fact that they have 3 home games. Uh, to break the record, and they've put themselves in this position in April as well. I mean that's fantastic. I mean, how many other teams could put themselves in that position as well?
I mean, it's definitely a very hard thing to do, to break that record. It's a lot of wins and it's a success consistently throughout a long season, which means they've had very little um, downturns, or they've had very little times where it's been rough times. So they're losing streaks. Like, you see teams all the time get on like a 5-game losing streak or a 6-game losing streak here and there during the seasons. But the fact that they haven't had any significant losing streaks this season and kept it consistently winning all the time is incredible. I think the one thing also, like you mentioned, the 3 games at home for their last 5, they also play their last 3 games of the season are against 3 teams that are not in the playoffs this year. So the schedule is favorable for them to win 3 out of 5 here. So I think they're going to win 4 out of 5. If
4 out of 5, and then 64, and that would and coincidence. This is the 64th episode. That would
Yeah,
be like you want to call it now and just say they'll end it with their excellent season with 64 wins. You want to call it?
yeah. I mean, I think 64 wins can hits the nail on the head. I think they're going to do it. I mean, even though they have these 3 teams that aren't in the playoffs, the Flyers, Caps, and Canadians, they're all still 3 tough teams, who aren't having great seasons. But yeah, every team's tough to play against. I think they'll have a nice game against the Leafs. I think the Leafs might be the loss that the out of the 5 that they have. But I mean, it's still going to be a really good game to watch on Thursday, Toronto and Boston. But I don't see them not reaching 63 games at least.
Oh, that absolutely. The Stanley Cup playoffs, I do not see Boston losing. Some people say that the Penguins could have a good series against them because they would play potentially a 7-game series, but I just do not see. I would be surprised if the Penguins got away with 2 wins if they came cross each other in the playoffs. But who
They
do
might
you
not even make the playoffs.
what?
The Penguins, they might not even make the playoffs.
That's a thing. But they
Yeah.
certainly acted like the series the other night, a series game
Mm-hmm.
as well. The New York Rangers are still going to be that dark horse, but Panera Bread and the Rangers, they're I mean they're good. Don't get me wrong, but but I still see them getting railroaded by Boston. And if I wanted a team to win this, New York or Boston, I'm taking New York. Always, always. I guess I'm more of a default Rangers fan in that situation. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is a shame that our Caps are not going to make it. Uh, and it's a tough one. But I mean, uh, yeah. Wow. Boston is definitely gonna might have two championships on their hand with the Celtics and the Bruins as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're
On
having a
TV.
really great season. I
Yeah,
mean, like you said, I don't. It's easy to look at them going to the playoffs and say I don't see anybody beating them. Um, but it'll be definitely interesting. It'll be an exciting series to watch because I don't think we've seen a President's Trophy winner win the Stanley Cup in a long time. I mean, at least in my lifetime, I can't remember the last time it happened, if it ever has. But I actually saw an interview by Gerard Gallant today after the Rangers game. No, yeah, against when they play the Caps today, and he said they were talking about them getting 100 points this year, and he's like, it's all great, but in 2 weeks it doesn't matter, because the playoffs are a different animal. So I mean, Boston could have this great historic season, win 64 games, all that, and get all these great accolades in the regular season. They could get bounced out in the first round. So, I mean, I think that's one of the great things about the NHL these days is it's even more competitive in the playoffs. There's not really any underdogs. There's every series is a tight series, is a winnable by anybody. And it makes the playoffs really exciting.
I think that's why you see underdogs perform better is because you can't assess how it's harder to assess skill level in hockey than it is with basketball. And and remember, these are still professionals, but you hit that, you get a good shot, you screen the goalie at the right time, and your defense is on point, you know, of course you're going to win that game. And lucky bounces are just more common in hockey than in basketball because players fall. It's the puck is sliding around on the ice, and uh and I guess this game moves more than any other sport, and it's the hardest sport to play as well, in my humble opinion.
No, I agree. I mean, the hockey's a tough sport to play, and you need all 20 guys on the roster, all 18 skaters to perform. In basketball, you got five starters. They play majority of the game. You got a couple guys off the bench, but it's all relying on five guys, and it's kind of easy. There's I don't know. I have my personal opinions of basketball. I think it's a joke. Um, the NBA especially. I mean, I do enjoy college basketball. It's a lot more work ethic. You're playing on for it's a lot harder to win in the college basketball because you have so many teams. I mean, you start with 64 teams in the playoffs. Um, so I mean I enjoy watching college basketball, but hockey is definitely the hardest. The Stanley Cup is to me is definitely the hardest trophy to win in professional sports. And it does take all 18 guys. You got role players, you got superstars, you got guys who are grinders on the fourth line, you got D who are meant to go out there and just block shots and hit people and play physical. So it's a hard sport to play. And the fact that Boston's got to 60 wins is a tremendous accomplishment. It's insane that they've only lost 12 games in regulation. So it's going to be really exciting to watch them play. I think a lot of people, a lot of hockey analysts, a lot of people in the hockey world are going to be focused on the Boston Bruins when the playoffs come around.
And I don't know who could beat them out west. I don't see the Western team, any Western Conference team, uh, beating any Eastern Conference team. I'm taking the Eastern team this time around, and I thought the Lightning were gonna win the 3 Stanley Cups in a row. That was incorrect with Colorado and last year, but I do think that but Boston's still the number one favorite overall. And
Mm-hmm.
if I get this the standings up here uh in a uh in a moment once my computer loads. Okay, so you've got okay, wild card is there and it's still loading. But if you had to pick anyone else, any other team to win this, who would you take?
Well, I'm with you, Adam. I don't think it's anybody from the West this year. Um, but if I had to pick anybody else, I would say probably Tampa Bay.
Of course. And I mean, still, Steven Stamkos is still grinding it out, and you got Nick Paul. I think Nick Paul is still a very bit of a guy who's a little underrated. He's
Mm-hmm.
there. He's not exactly on your radar, but he's still there, and he's still
Yeah.
like just racks up points too.
Yeah, and I mean, for me personally, I'm a Tampa fan, but I think when you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're such a driven team, and they've proven that they know how to win and they know what success looks like and feels like and how you have to achieve it. So I think in the playoff Tampa Bay, even though they're older, they've had a lot of long seasons. Just think they know what to do and when they have to do it when they're in the playoffs, and they're a completely different team. I mean, I would say this a team that could be in there besides Boston is probably Toronto, just because I think they're going to be very, very hungry based on their history, their recent history, and I think they're going all in this year. I think their GM put his chips all in at the poker table, so I think they're ready to make a deep run. But I think you're going to see a lot more exciting hockey out of the East than the West.
As much as I like to make fun of Toronto, I do think like they are another dark horse for the Stanley Cup run,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I don't know if you've done this, like if you just like to hate a team, or you just love it when
Oh,
they fail
I
or
rag
fall
on
down,
Toronto.
whether
I
it's
rag on Toronto all the time.
like we oh man, I rag on them and I'll rag on Les Canadiens all the
Mm-hmm.
time. I mean, if there's a Canadian team I want to win the Stanley Cup final, which I know is not going to happen this year, but I do expect the Oilers to get there, assuming McDavid just stays put. They'll get there eventually, just not this year and probably not the next year. As well, even though McDavid is having a historic season and is racking up like 150 points, which we don't see much of these days as well. Uh
I
and
agree.
and I don't know if we're ever going to see another 200-point player again. And
Maybe not.
and the only reason now, do you agree with me on this? The 200-point seasons that happened with
Mm-hmm.
Dion and Gretzky and all those guys. The only reason that they were able to do it was because they played in the stand-up goalie era, and they were not forced to really play against the butterfly era. Not really or they were just in the very early stages of it when Patrick Waugh and Brodeur started to implement it. Uh, I mean, because after that, you see Gretzky's numbers really on the decline, and I guess
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's partially age as well, but I don't think neither of them could have gotten 200 points in today's era at all
Yeah,
because
I agree. I think the goalies are a lot better. I think in those eras the game was tougher, but in today's game, players are faster. Players play positionally, I think, a bit better, and the goaltending is so much better. So I don't think we may not see a 200-point player, at least in this generation, or at least in this decade, the 2020 decade. But who knows? Maybe one day you could find someone who's just on a hot streak, and has a really good season, like McDavid. Like if he's starting to shoot the puck more, and that's why he's leading the league in goals, because he's starting to shoot more. So you might see McDavid get pretty close. I think he could score 70 goals in one season. He might even get 70 goals this season. He's very close. But if you see McDavid start racking up some more points, with assists, but I think for him to get 200 points, he can score 70 goals in a season and rack up like 100 assists. But where are those other 30 points going to come from? He needs more support. He's got Leon Draisaitl and a couple guys, but if he gets maybe one more superstar that can score 30 goals on his line, that's going to be the difference. And you might see him get to 200, but it'll be tough. It'll be very tough.
if Austin Matthews wants to win a cup, I say go to Edmonton or go to a team in the States, because if Matthews and McDavid played with each other, and with Draisaitl on the same line, it is you can't shut it down at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and I don't like I think I if there's going to be a next Marcel Dion type of player, that's someone who gets into the Hall of Fame, has excellent stats, but just doesn't play in a cup final. I think it's going to be Matthews unless he gets out of Toronto, because I really think the Maple Leafs are just that cursed, because for whatever they just lose in the first round all the time. And I mean, 2002 was probably one of their best runs, and then in '93 had Doug Gilmour gotten that penalty call against Gretzky in his favor, you would have had it, um one last original six matchup of the '90s, but that never happened. So the Maple Leafs are cursed.
Yeah, yeah. I think they've definitely had like whatever you call it, curse, or they've had something on their organization, and this is why I rag them all the time. Is they're paying like five players like over 50% of the salary cap, but I think they have a good enough roster to do it this year. It just depends once you get into round two, are you going to be able to beat the Bruins in the divisional round? And then if you beat the Bruins, who are you going to face in the conference finals? But they have to get past Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round. So
And
that's going to be
that is a tall order for a team that almost won it last year for a third time in a row. That is a very tough.
Yep, I agree. It's a tough task. It's a tall order. It's a incredible first round matchup that you probably would expect to see in the conference finals, but you're going to get to see in the first round, which is going to be incredible to watch.
Definitely incredible. Wow, we covered the playoffs. The season's almost coming to an end. I'm going to take a look at the standings here. The New York Islanders. The New York Islanders are they're out of it. They are out of it, right? Officially.
No,
What?
they're in the first wild card spot.
Oh, okay, they are in the first wild card spot, and then you have the Florida Panthers. Penguins, I just don't see this happening.
Well, they're about to jump the Florida Panthers right now. They're playing right now. They're playing the Flyers are up 3-1. So they're about to take the second wild card spot after they win.
So and I would still love to see Boston play Pittsburgh in to start things out for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. That would be pretty cool. That would be pretty
Now,
cool. A good matchup to see.
Yeah. Now the New York Islanders, with Sebastian Aho, you and Sorokin as well. Sorokin's been the biggest reason why they've held on as long as they did. I'm not too sure. I don't know how familiar you are with the Locked On Islanders podcast, but I have to say that Gil Martin is probably one of the best podcast hosts I've ever listened to. So I'm going to give him a shout out on this. I mean, after all, he did advertise this beauty of a podcast as well.
Nice.
Yeah, so we wanted to give him a shout out, even though he's probably not listening. But you know what? Maybe I'll tag him in this and just say, hey, I gave you a shout out in this episode. Go listen to it now, sort of thing. I'll tag him on Twitter later.
There you go. Yeah.
As well. Anything that pops out to you in the East or the West?
Anything that pops out to me, I would say, um, I called this at the beginning of the season. I said Seattle's going to make the playoffs, and right now they're in a good spot to do it with 7 games left. I don't see them falling off the wild card. And people were telling me that they're not ready. This is only season 2. And I said they're more than ready. I think they're going to be in the playoffs, and I think they're going to be a tough team to beat. So that's something that pops out to me is Seattle Kraken making their first ever playoff appearance this season. Most likely, it's not a done deal yet. They haven't clinched, but I think they're going to be clinching in the next couple days.
And remember when the Golden Knights went on their run and they won a Stanley Cup finals game as well. I don't see Seattle doing that, but they're going to have, they could definitely just, I don't know if they'll win a series in the playoffs, but and just be that dark horse against a Colorado or a Minnesota. But I think I think that the fact that they just got in on their second season is always good, especially when it comes to any expansion team of the Big Four sports.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think they went for a little bit different of approach than Vegas. They didn't try to get the top players in the expansion draft. They picked the right players. And I think their first season was a bit of, you're getting your feet wet. Your new team in the league. You got a new group of guys that are trying to get used to each other, and then they use the offseason to add some new players and regroup, retool. And I think they're built to last. I think you're gonna see them next year pushing into like the top three of the division. But I think, like you said, they could be a dark horse in the playoffs. Like they get in, a team takes them lightly because they're the expansion team. You don't really have a whole lot of history behind them, and they start winning games and winning series, and eventually they could be in the Western Conference Finals. And everybody's like, what the hell? Seattle's playing the Western Conference Finals. Who saw that coming? So, like you said, they could be a really good dark horse, but they are a team that jumps out to me in the West for sure.
From a city that lost its NBA team and is like really just had its struggles with championships. You had the Seahawks win, a Super Bowl, and they could have won two in a row too. It's like, but they had
Mm-hmm.
very bad luck, honestly. They like
Yeah,
even during the 90s, 95 with Griffey and I think yeah, that was like one of their best times as well. And I think a player by the name of Alex Rodriguez Alex Rodriguez was there as well. And I can't believe we're getting off topic into baseball, but Seattle just getting the Kraken certainly has been they certainly love it up there in Seattle
yeah,
as well. And I do think that was one of the right moves to make for the expansion draft. But I think the worst thing was when the Golden Knights came in, that it was 31 teams. It was an odd number. And it was an odd number before, but it shouldn't have been an odd number in the 2017-2018 season. It just shouldn't have been that way. And they
mm-hmm.
should have found a different spot. They could have I could have argued that Quebec City's still available, but I don't know if we'll ever see another NHL team there or another
Yeah, we may
NHL
not.
team in Hartford. But
Mm-hmm.
I guess my last question, or one of my last things for you, is uh, if you had to pick any city that doesn't have an NHL team, it or never did have an NHL team, what do you think would be the best city to expand to add to the league?
I would say, I'm gonna go with Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas.
Yep.
Either a move from the Coyotes or you just expand it there.
No, I wouldn't move the Coyotes. I think the Coyotes, even how bad they have been in their history, and their ups and downs, I think it's important for a team to be in Arizona. So I think it's important for them to stay there, especially if they get this new rink. I think it's important for the game of hockey and expanding out west, um, to grow the sport, because you see there's hockey is huge in Canada. It's huge in um, the northern part of the U.S. and it's big on the East Coast. But I think it's important for it to stay out there. So I think expanding to Houston would be great. I think Houston's the biggest city in the US without a professional sports team. Like they have they have the Texans, but I don't think the Texans are directly in Houston. Um, but they don't have NBA, they don't have NHL, they don't have soccer. Well, they might have soccer. I'm not really sure, but
Okay.
I think Houston would be a great spot to create a nice rivalry with Dallas.
Yeah, and Florida has two teams. California has
Mhm.
three. New York has the Islanders, the Rangers, and the Sabres. Texas can certainly
Mhm.
handle two teams as well, and also they would be another Big Four city officially because they have the Astros, they have the Rockets, they have the Texans,
Oh, that's
and
right. They do have the Houston Astros. I forgot about that.
yeah, 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 but they're a real baseball team, by the
Yeah.
way. Uh, and and I guess you would call them the Arrows because I don't know, uh, whether or not they would have any legal thing with the
Yeah, no, I
WHA.
don't.
What?
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking about. I forgot the Houston Rockets NBA team too.
Yeah,
I think I was getting Houston confused with some other city that doesn't have a pro team right now.
yeah, don't worry about it. But
Yeah.
the Arrows, the were the WHA team. So
Yeah.
apparently,
Yeah.
so I don't know. Like, I would like to see the Arrows return as a professional hockey team, and of course, the NHL would
Hmm.
carry them in.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would have any legal trouble obtaining that name from the WHA at all, or if they would just buy the rights to it or
Hmm.
something and then just bring it on um,
Yeah.
as
That'd be
well.
cool. I think another city I would like to see a possible NHL team, and I've seen articles about this, is the talk of the Sharks moving from San Jose to San Francisco to be in the bigger city. I think that'd be a pretty cool move if you saw that, because San Jose I think is like it's a relatively big city, but it's not as up and up as San Francisco. So I think that'd be a pretty cool move if you see San Jose move to San Francisco.
I think, well, you have the Warriors playing there, and as long as you have that arena there, you can just
Yeah.
transform it into a hockey rink, and you're good there. Uh,
Hmm.
I think Kansas City could be a good town for it. Uh,
Yes.
Create that Missouri rivalry. It doesn't have to just be in baseball. You can put Kansas City there as well.
Hmm.
Cleveland seemed to be one city that just didn't really get a fair chance. And I know you have Columbus out in Ohio, but Cleveland could certainly handle it too. Um,
Yeah.
Indianapolis, another good city,
Hmm.
as well. And and but I do not think Atlanta will ever they're ever going to feel comfortable again putting it in Atlanta again. Like
I don't think it's
that
a
is a
hockey
no go.
market.
What?
There's not a big hockey market there. And I think going to Atlanta again, they've already had two chances and it's been terrible. I think if you go back there again, it's a waste of time and money. So I just don't think it's a hockey market.
It's it's not a hockey market, and it's a shame too. I
Hmm.
mean, it really is a shame. The Flames died out, pun intended, by the way. Haha, funny. Uh, but they went to Calgary, and the Thrashers became the new Winnipeg Jets and went to
Hmm.
Winnipeg, obviously. But it's like they're so bad at this. Like they had to, okay, let's relocate, let's get some money, let's put these teams in Canada so
Yeah.
we can get our market share back. I think that says Atlanta is just not going to have it. They're focused on baseball, basketball, and football. They do not care.
Right.
At least professional hockey, they don't care about. They'll go to their they'll go to the college games and whatever in the ACHA, but they're not putting it any professional stuff there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
I know ACHA hockey is really big down in like those like southern states. That I've noticed this year it's grown a lot, but I just can't see a professional hockey team playing in Atlanta.
and that is a bit of a shame. Or
Mm.
Savannah. South Carolina is not big enough to even have a pro sports team. Uh, Raleigh has it. Charlotte could still be could be another potential city. I was there back in February. Uh, excuse me, saw the Checkers. Went to my first AHL game there, and it was like there was barely an empty seat in the house. Like
Yeah.
you were hard pressed, and this was on a Saturday night, son. I'll tell you that much. It was on a Saturday night,
Hmm.
or yeah, it was on a Saturday night. February 11th was Saturday, and it was packed, and it was like it felt like almost going to an NHL game. Uh, the one thing about the arena was that it almost felt like going into high school, but with, security, metal detectors, just a little bit of it. But then when you got into the arena,
Mhm.
it felt like an NHL arena almost.
That's funny that you were there on Saturday the 11th because I was there the following weekend at the Checkers game on the 18th.
What do you think of the of Bojangles Arena or Bojangles Coliseum?
It's old school. It's definitely an old arena, which I think is awesome for the minor league team. It just has that kind of like old school 70s, 80s. It honestly, it reminds me of the arena in the movie, the Will Ferrell movie Semi Pro, where he has the Flint Tropics, the semi pro basketball team. It gives me a like that type of arena vibes, like old school, like 70s basketball, like minor league team, which I love. I thought was really cool. I thought it was awesome. The one thing, if you, I don't know if you made your way down, but you can go to the Red Club. It's a like a kind of like a fan experience area down below on the main level. You go in there and you get, and that's where the locker room is for the Checkers. You get to watch the players walk out, kind of like a red carpet thing. So they come underneath all the stands out to their bench from their locker room, and you get to go sit there and high five the players and all that. It's like really big for like the kids that go to the games, which is pretty cool.
And all the kids seem to like love it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like there was like no kid, even the kid sitting behind me was like cheering the whole time. Um and I caught their second goal of that night on camera too, which was
Oh, nice.
which was, check out my Instagram there. And I'll leave that in the show notes. But I definitely think that Charlotte could be a potential city as well. But you have the Hornets there already, and North Carolina could be big enough to host two teams, and it's a schlep to get to Raleigh from Charlotte. It's like 3 hours almost to get there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a bad bus ride, but it's perfect for two NHL teams to have in the state of North Carolina. So that's, I
Yeah.
guess, that would be the one city as well. That in Kansas City as well would be Kansas City, Cleveland, Charlotte. Those are my top three.
Yeah. Those are good. Those are good choices.
Uh, oh man, wow, we got a lot done in 47 minutes, or not even 47 minutes. But anything else on your mind before I end the segment?
Uh no, I'm just excited for playoffs.
I'm excited for playoffs too. I'm excited for the Frozen Four. Um, favorite favorite hockey video game.
I mean, I like the new era ones. Um, I would say my favorite was NHL '05. That was my favorite one that I played growing up.
I played that used on the GameCube. Still pretty
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
And I think after the GameCube era, I just played whatever the 8-bit ice hockey was and Blades of Steel. I
Yep.
don't game much anymore, but I should probably get back to that and put that on the YouTube channel. Probably.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
see
It's a
what I
good
can do
time. It's a
there.
good way to relax at the end of a long week.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm terrible at video games now. But okay. All right. Anything you want me to cover? Any shout outs you want to do? I'll post your Instagram or something. Or
No, dude. I mean, we're all good. No, I don't got any shout outs.
or I'll just put your Twitter handle where people could follow you or Instagram handle.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. I'll text it to you.
All right, perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
and that'll do it for episode number 64 of the Adam Rothstein Hockey Podcast. If you want to get access to the newsletter, please subscribe to rothsteina.substack.com. Arguably the best newsletter on the planet for all hockey fans. And I've got to admit, the $5 premium plan is definitely excellent. But if you want to get access to the premium as well, the premium content, you can get your first 2 months free when you purchase the $50 when you purchase the $50 a year subscription. So if you do want to save on your first 2 months, just go ahead and do that when you sign up on Substack. All right. And you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel, like this video, assuming that I've posted it out on Monday, and also comment and share this podcast with your friends on Spotify. I'm getting close to 500 downloads. Let's do it, people. Come on, just a little further, and then we can get 1,000, or hopefully let's get 3,000 this year. 3,000 total downloads for the year, and I'll be happy camper. All right. Anything else you want to add, Brandon?
No, this is a good time, Adam. Always a blast talking to you, and I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
All right. Peace out, everyone.